Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for, frankly, persevering with the day. I'm sure there's some soggy shoes, some frizzy hair, and some general cold wetness going on out there. But we're really grateful for you sticking with us and joining with us this afternoon. My name is Michelle Steele. I am Chief Executive of Regeneration Brainery. We are this year's charity partner, official charity partner to UKREiiF, which we are absolutely delighted to have had the opportunity to have that position and really showcase the work that we do, which is essentially inspiring young people from more diverse backgrounds to enter this brilliant profession that is property and regeneration. I'm not going to say much at all, frankly. I'm going to leave our fantastic group of ambassadors to do the talking, and most importantly, I'm going to hand over to our fantastic chairperson, Leila Haloum, who actually, I think I'll just ask Leila to introduce herself. We're so lucky to have Leila. She's an absolute force of nature, and she's going to lead a discussion with the next generation of property professionals. So. Over to you, Leila.
Thank you, Michelle. And what a pleasure to be here with you all. I know there's general election news looming. If you're a politics whiz like me, I just ask, please, you keep your phones off and just tune in to what promises to be a great session, because if anything, you're looking at your future leaders here, that's for certain. So just to quickly say, I'm Leila. I'm a first-year politics international relations student. I also lead global student outreach at one of the largest tech companies. But today here in a personal capacity, talking all things sustainability, tech, digital skills, employability readiness, and doing a lot of that with the ambassadors here at Regeneration Brainery. So I think starting from that, Benjamin, we can come along and introduce our panel of ambassadors.
Sure. So hi everyone, my name is Benjamin Krumi. I just finished uni this week, but I was a third-year business management and marketing student. But I also am going to be an intern this summer at Geraldine in capital markets as well. So that's me.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Martin. I've just finished up at the University of Birmingham doing a politics, policy and economics degree. And I'm looking to get into the built environment through my Masters in Urban Planning in September and work experience throughout the summer.
Hi everyone, I'm Manuela and I'm finishing my last year in college and I'm looking to do a planning of real estate with a placement year in the University of Manchester in September.
Hi, I'm Rose Hallam. I'm a third out of fourth year student at University of Manchester studying planning and real estate.
Hi, I'm JC Withers. I studied cost consultancy as an apprentice at Mace and I'm a Regeneration Brainery Ambassador.
I'm Noah Taiwo. I'm a third year planning and real estate student at the University of Manchester as well. I'm currently on a placement year with Avison Young based in Liverpool, back and forth between Liverpool and Manchester.
Hi everyone, I'm Lewis James Hindmarsh. I'm currently a student at Stoke-on-Trent College studying construction in the built environment, but I'm due to be starting a degree apprenticeship with Atkins Realis in September in project management.
So you can see the real diversity in pathways and experiences between our ambassadors, and that's something that was really surprising to me and I found really interesting. I think honing in on that to start with, either JC or Benjamin, I think both of you mentioned you're studying non-traditional, like non-STEM degrees. Would either of you like to talk about like why and then how that ties to what you intend to pursue professionally once you've graduated?
Sure, I don't mind starting off. So for me, picking a business management and marketing degree, coming into year 13, I actually didn't know what I actually wanted to do, but I've always been a very ambitious person, so I thought, why not get a degree that I can enter into multiple industries with, so that when I come out of uni, I can build up enough skills so that I can, be as employable as possible. So I thought that's why I'll pick a business degree, firstly.
And JC, was there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is...
Sorry, Jay, my bad. I knew there was something going on there. JC.
Yeah, absolutely. So at school, I was always really, really passionate for geography, really wanted to get into the built environment. Social housing was the first kind of thing that kind of got me there in geography in year 7. Then we moved on to communities and placemaking. And all my teachers, actually every single one of them was like, that's politics. What you want to do is politics. And I've spoken to other people in the room today and we've realised that that has been a shared experience from our younger years through school, where teachers are seeing what we want to do, and that is the built environment and construction, and seeing that as politics and pushing the academic route more rather than the technical subjects. And that landed me my degree in PP, which I'm really proud to have, and I've got some great skills from it. and I think it's a great backing to have obtained, but I am now having to move into the built environment for a further master's potentially. And I think there really is an issue there where teachers and our careers advisors at school aren't aware of the subjects and the courses that we can do, and especially feeling this need to push the academic subjects when technical subjects are clearly just as rewarding. So yeah, I think this is the thing I want to contribute to this discussion, is we need to go into the schools. And
So you definitely feel it's more a school and education system matter as opposed to, it being
just get it down at the
because
early ages.
I know based on, say, my tech experience, it's the gap between the industry and the classroom, and I suppose especially in this industry there isn't really an equivalent subject. As you say, your interest was piqued by geography, but then perhaps your teachers didn't really know specifically of that. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, I think it's potentially a mix of two things. I think quite problematically teachers saw that I was doing perhaps quite well at school, and they felt, yes, they were pushing me to do Cambridge and Oxford, and I went to a state school that did push for Oxbridge. So they kind of saw maybe my skills and my strengths and tried to push that down that route that would get me potentially the grades they wanted.
Right.
And I just think there's a lack of awareness as well. I think even my geography teachers, and it's the environment they're in and they specialise in, they're not aware that those skills and those jobs do come under the built environment and construction, and they seem to think that it does stem from PP degrees in politics and humanities, when, as we can see, that isn't the case.
And Lewis, you obviously you're in the process of completing BTEC.
Yeah.
How have you found that to be? Do you feel there are similar sentiments echoed in your experience?
To be honest, I do feel similar to Jay. Like, obviously I'm a bit earlier on, but like when I was in school, especially applying to college as well, I think it's seen as a bit like, they do emphasise that the UKAS credits amount to the same, but if you decide to take a BTEC and only a BTEC rather than like a split pathway or fully A-levels, your friends or even teachers, they'll kind of see it as, oh, are you not smart enough to do A-levels,
Right.
or are you not competent enough to do A-levels? And it's like, I don't think those two match up at all, the statement or the decision, because BTECs offer a wider range of courses compared to A-levels, or just as wide of a range, and they're the same amount of UKAS credits as well, and they take just as much hard work. So, but it wasn't really with the education system or teachers pushing anything on you. It's mainly the youth, so maybe it's drilled into from younger.
An overall like culture and
I
perhaps
would say
societal
overall,
like perception of And when you've then connected with employers, how have they found your choice of BTEC?
Well, for me, I would say it might be a bit different, because obviously I do construction in the built environment, and all the employers I've connected with, they are construction-based employers. But I suppose if somebody was doing general business studies or a health and social BTEC, they maybe find it a bit difficult, because I can imagine they might not be seen as academic, or even the BTECs are newer than A-levels, so not everyone might know that they actually do amount to the same in UKAS credits.
So there is a lot we need to do to demystify that. And I think that continues. And talking to you, Jay, listening to you speak earlier at the Regeneration Brainery Pavilion, you spoke of your experience choosing an apprenticeship. And then similarly, not just the response of your educators or your employers, but rather your peers around you. Do you want to touch a bit more on that and choosing an apprenticeship?
Yeah, I think when deciding whether I wanted to go to uni full-time or whether I wanted to do an apprenticeship, I kind of always knew that I didn't want to do uni full-time, and then I remember telling people, oh, I'm going to look into apprenticeship routes, and the stigma that's still maybe around apprenticeship routes, it was, oh, did you not get the grades that you want? Did you not do as well as you thought? When in reality, it's probably even harder than it is ever to get an apprenticeship nowadays, because of everyone is applying for them, and there's not that many available. So it was kind of breaking that stigma just to my own friends and saying that, no, I've still done well, and I'm still going to continue my career. And also, the minute you mention the word construction, especially as a female, everyone goes, what are you going to do with construction? And it's getting that awareness as well for people to understand that there's such a wide range of jobs and there's space for us all in the industry, and I think us all have got a part to play to showcase these, and whether that's going into schools and being that visual person to go in and say, look at all these amazing things that we do, you can be part of this process and you can be here to make the change, is probably one of the most important things we can do.
So I think we've definitely defined the as-is scenario, if you like. We've realised what the issues are. And obviously all of you as ambassadors for Regeneration Brainery have had the chance to perhaps see and discover this industry in ways that other young people aren't fortunate enough to have had that. Does anyone want to, open question, like maybe discuss a bit more about their time of Regeneration Brainery and how looking at the rest of the classroom, how your experiences do differ, and perhaps what you've taken away from that?
I'm happy to go with.
Please, yeah.
So obviously, like I said, I study construction. It's quite a small class, to be honest, but in Stoke, like, we're not exactly a booming city. So right now the construction's on the up and coming. There's not too many opportunities, especially in fields like project management, quantity surveying, building surveying. It's a very hands-on, like, physical side of construction. There's a lot of tradespeople and similar. But so obviously when Regeneration came and the industry connections that they've got, we weren't even really advertised it correctly. Like, even the college weren't really sure what it was. We were just told to submit an application and see. So some of the lads, like, they didn't put 100% into the application, and there was me and Jack, who's in the audience, who did. We obviously went on to the boot camp, and then it was really eye-opening, to be honest. Like, the guys at Regeneration Brainery, they got a whole host of different construction industry professionals to come down, a whole host of roles, even some I'd never heard of, and I literally studied the subject. And then since then, it's just snowballed. Like, at such a young age, you get invited to coffee mornings, you get invited to events, conferences, everything really. You're treated as if you're already in the industry, even though you're not, and that just builds up a whole load of confidence. Whereas, not to put anybody down, but some of the guys in my class who didn't do that, even now they're still struggling for their next steps. They're not sure what they want to do, or they were anyway. And I think they've been limited a little bit because of the lack of industry connections. They're not as prominent on LinkedIn and stuff, and that's all the stuff that Regeneration Brainery teaches you.
In preparing for this session, Manuela, I read, I had a look at all of your profiles. That makes me sound like a stalker, but I promise you, in good intent. And I read and I discovered your entrepreneurial kind of spirit and the business that you've established within, like, the beauty sector. And that really interested me. I mean, in my background, I've studied, as I mentioned, politics, international relations, and then pursuing interests in tech and working in a tech profession while doing my degree. I always talk about being an and not an or, so the sense that you don't have to choose one job pathway over another. How has, like, entrepreneurship shaped your professional development, and how do you feel that then translates into your aspirations in real estate? Do you feel there are similarities? What can we do to encourage more ands?
I've started doing hair since I was 14, so during lockdown, there's always been a part of me that's always been wanting to do something. I just can't sit at home and not do anything. So from then, I've just been building on the business. And when it, like, comes in with property, I feel like I'm used to, like, managing. I run my own business. I deal with clients. I have to meet their needs within a time frame. I have to negotiate prices, and then there's aspects of I have to advertise my own business. So it's all depending on people. I get money based off of people like my work, and so there's always looking at areas, how can I improve. I ask my clients for feedbacks in areas of what more do they want me to do, or how can I change, like, my services and stuff, like how can it fit them. So I feel like in terms of property, it definitely fits the role of, like, I'm looking to fit into a role of, like, managing, because I'm just used to doing stuff like that, and I'm looking just, like, hopefully to build that also, to, like, go for work experience with Regeneration Brainery that will expose me to different skills on top of the skills I already have.
And the fact from 14 you already have had such experience is really remarkable. Yeah. And do you feel then when you are connecting with professionals that they are kind of respecting that in the same way, that they do see those crossovers? What do you feel like? How do you feel that's recognised?
I feel like at first, sometimes I still degrade it myself, because sometimes I don't look at it as, like, an actual job, because it started off as a hobby. And I feel like even in terms of, like, applying to, like, degrees apprenticeship, when I ask, oh, what job are you doing? I just thought I'm not doing anything, because I don't know if I, like, give myself that recognition. But then to other people, they look at it as, like, there's not that many 18-year-olds that are running a business and doing college at the same time and trying to balance A-levels and B-techs and stuff like that. So they kind of value it more than I do. So I'm just trying to get into a place of, like, giving myself a bit of the pat on the back. Like, I've actually started something from a young age and being able to continue it to the place that it is now.
Yeah, and I feel like we can now bring it more into that wider question of like recruitment. I know backstage, Rose in particular, we were discussing the recruitment process and whether we really feel it is helping young people and early professionals present them best selves, or whether it's just a barrier to entry. Do you want to elaborate maybe more on those views that we shared?
Yeah, no, I think it can definitely be a barrier. I have dyslexia and dyscalculia, so I find them really, really challenging. And I feel like even for people who aren't like neurodiverse, they are still challenging. I'm at uni in my third year, and I'm doing an application for a job in real estate. I'm not being asked a single question about real estate. I'm looking at a box of stars and asked to repeat the symmetry, and that did not come up in my degree. And yeah, I just feel like it's definitely a challenge. For someone like me, where I know that I have the qualifications and I have the experience, and I should be able to at least get to the next step of these jobs. And I'm like, someone sees my CV and they say, okay, and then they see my results from these tests, and then it's just an immediate no without even speaking to anyone. Like, I know if you put me in front of somebody, like, I can portray my experience like well, and like I do have the experience necessary. But yeah, I feel like it definitely can put you off applying to places. Yeah, I've had some quite bad experiences where you're given like a prompt, you have 1 minute to read the prompt and then 1 minute to answer the question. By the time the 1 minute's finished, I haven't even finished reading the prompt. And I do wonder the kind of people who do get those jobs, because I do find them really, really hard. And I do want to graduate and get into a good role, but it seems quite challenging when you know that the top 5 or 10 real estate firms are all using like the same recruitment methods.
Which isn't just a disadvantage to people who have neurodiversity, but I think more broadly. And then for the recruiters themselves, as you say, not even having the chance to meet someone. Like, if this was a job interview, I think you'd all hire them, please. Like, so I think there is such need to really maybe humanise that process. I see a lot of nods amongst the ambassadors.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to add to that point?
Yeah, no, definitely for me, even when I'm applying for grad roles and internships in my second year and in third year, you'll do psychometric testing that doesn't actually match up with the job at all, but when you come into the interview and then they see you, they're like, why didn't we take you? Type of thing. Like, those tests don't necessarily define anything related to the job itself, and don't even define exactly who you are as a person. So for me personally, I don't really see psychometric testing as an effective method of measuring a candidate, because the skills don't necessarily match up. So for me personally, I'm not really a big fan of it. And most opportunities I've got, they've actually not had psychometric testing as part of the recruitment process in itself. And those experiences that I have and will continue to have, hopefully, God willing, will be amazing as well. And I'll gain a lot of experience from them. So that's my personal view.
Anyone else?
I think looking at it from a different angle of the recruitment process as well is, I appreciate that a lot of companies will have a lot of different applications for things. But I think sometimes you just finding out that, no, I didn't get the job, it can be a little bit disheartening, and they're almost a little bit like, why haven't I got the job? So I think even if it's that feedback of a one-line item, which I appreciate will take a bit of time, but that can be so valuable for them to take forward into the next interview, because if you can imagine, they'll just maybe keep doing the wrong process all the time, and then they might get to the point where it's 10, 15 different job applications and you're not getting any further, and then at that point you might think, maybe I'm just not right for this industry, and then turn your back on it and not get involved, and therefore we've lost people that could add value to us.
Which, again, it's not benefiting anyone. Like, it's the organisations losing out on talent, but also for yourselves having that motivation to keep going. It's really quite shocking to hear those experiences and how, you know, all of you share similar sentiments despite your different stages of your career. I'm trying to think where we should turn to. Otherwise, I think it is just that idea further of what we mentioned. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see exactly the point I'm trying to make here. Noah, regarding work placement and doing your placement year. And similar to the idea, the point I was trying to make was the sense that if the organisations are doing these recruitment processes which are putting young people off perhaps like applying, or it's giving them that barrier to entry. You mentioned similarly when it comes to doing your placement year, perhaps you felt like a similar way as well about like maybe a sense of inferiority or like the expectations or it being an unequal relationship between employer and employee? Is that something you want to elaborate on?
Absolutely. So I've been fortunate enough this year to be taken on with a placement year with Avison Young, based in Liverpool, as I mentioned, which has been a brilliant experience. I think it has massively benefited what's hopefully going to be a long and very successful career for me. It's cliche to say, but in a year's work experience, I've learned far more about the industry, about how to interact with individuals, practical applications of the things that I've learned in my first 2 years of uni.
That's great to hear.
So I couldn't rave enough about the benefit of a placement year. However, a shocking statistic. So I enrolled on the same course as Rosie here, about 100 people on my course. And during second year, 65 of us opted on to do a placement year. We said, yeah, we see the appeal of that. It was something advertised quite heavily at the start of our course. And I think it was probably one of the big pull factors for 65 out of the 100. If I tell you now, out of the 65 people who opted in, 7 of us were able to enroll on placement years, which I think says something about the industry, says something about recruitment, says something about employment and the firms who are available. And don't get me wrong, there's lots of firms doing great things, work experience schemes, placement schemes, all that type of thing. But I mean, there's 12,000 people here with brilliant jobs, huge firms, vast resources, offices up and down the country. And I think my personal feeling, like I say with Avison Young, it's been brilliant, but my personal feeling with some firms is you really, really have to push to even get your foot in the door. And you're almost left with this feeling of, as a young person, oh, these firms are doing me a favour by allowing me to start my career. And by doing that, they completely miss the value of individuals like ourselves, people out there, all these young people who are fired up, excited, willing to learn, and you're left feeling like you are being done a favour as opposed to the opposite, whereas I feel the firm that I've worked with this year look at me and view me as someone they have invested in, they've spent time with, they've trained me, they've taught me things, and really, whether or not I stick with Avison Young, wherever my career takes me, they have made me feel included and accepted and brought me into this industry in a great way. So I think more of that needs to be done across the board, small firms, big firms, a placement week, allowing someone to shadow you for a day, taking people on for placement years, for me, invaluable experience. And it's a shame, like I say, 7 out of 65 people were able to experience that. If only the other 58 were as fortunate, I think there'd be a lot more enthusiasm for young people. And who knows, maybe the next cohort, the course would have taken on 200 people, 300 people. So I think that's definitely been my personal take and experience on things.
I feel something I've heard a lot throughout the conference, and other delegates have told me the same, is they've attended sessions where industry leaders in the room have said, but how do we engage young people? How do we engage the next generation of talent? And then in some of our discussions, we've been saying, well, how do we change the way industry leaders are engaging with us? So there's clearly this need and desire from both parts to want to speak and work with and, engage with one another. But it seems that there are these challenges that we have outlined. Your experience it sounds really positive in your placement, unquestionably. I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel if there have been other things in your work experience, in your placements, or whatever professional experience you've had thus far that you feel are tangible steps that members of the audience can take to make a more inclusive workforce and culture at work.
I think there's definitely a need to try and humanize the people who are in charge. I feel like when you walk into a work experience or an internship, you kind of think that everyone there is like obviously they're very impressive people, but you think, how do I approach them? They don't really care about me. I'm just a student here on placement. And I feel like I did an internship and it was really valuable when the managing director came and sat down with me and just wanted to listen to me and my experiences as a young person and then relate it back to me with their career path. I feel like a lot of us probably think that our career paths have to be quite linear, like you do your A-levels because that's what everyone seems to want in the industry when BTECs are just as adequate, and then go on to university when you could have done an apprenticeship, and then you go into one job and you stay there for a long time. But a lot of people in the industry that I've actually found it hasn't really been like that. They've done a lot of loop-to-loops. They've gone and worked in different industries. I feel like it's really valuable for us to understand that it kind of like lowers the barrier, makes people seem a lot more approachable and much more human.
I don't even think it's a matter of lowering the barrier. I think it is, as you say, just promoting that great sense of inclusivity, because as you know, because you've been part of like Regeneration Brainery, have had these hands-on experiences, you've seen what it's like to network, you've got to know people, as you say, you found a real human face to it. But as you say, if in that recruitment process you're not even meeting a human and you're just seeing like job titles or professional photos, you can understand why you begin to question, do I fit in? Is that really the right firm for me? Others from the panel.
Yeah, just to touch on just the recruitment process and carrying that conversation, I'd say half of the grad schemes I applied for before I decided to kind of pull out of that race and get myself some more experience. Half of them didn't even look at my CV, so that's how dehumanizing it was. They didn't even know, even though my picture's on it, they didn't even know like what I looked like, the experience I had, the degree I really even did, just some very basic background information. And from those points, I clearly didn't fit something and they didn't want me. And the other thing I think is so dehumanizing is asking someone that is in the third year of uni, potentially working, which I think a lot of us have done outside of our degrees, to submit an application that takes upwards of 5 to 6 hours to make sure you're doing it to the highest standard, to get absolutely nothing back. And that is so dehumanizing, and you just feel like you've put a lot of effort in and you haven't ever learned something that you can take forward because you've done all the work to not know if it was good, if it was bad, or just didn't even get seen by anyone. So I think even though the feedback can't be individual, I think just some kind of general feedback to let you know that you've been heard, and just so you can carry on and continue forward in the industry, and you've taken something from the time you've not spent on your degree and you've spent applying. So that would be my big thing of, feeling quite dehumanized by the process.
Does anyone else have some examples of, as I say, where things have gone well? And what you think more people can do to promote that change, or even ideas, like when you're talking in like an ideal world, what you'd like to see done differently?
I think one of the things is just breaking that stereotype of you walk into a room and it's just all middle-aged men, because I know I certainly had that preconception of when I was first joining the construction industry. Everyone around me told me that this is what it was going to be like, and why are you doing that, and what are you doing that for? And when I actually came into the industry and I joined my company, and we've done like an apprentice week where we've done our induction, and they took on 50 new apprentices like throughout the UK, and 28 of them was actually females. So just already going into that, it was the whole stereotype that everyone's told me about, and everyone's saying, why have you gone into it? It's just been broken from that point. So it's great because I'm in the industry and I can see that, but a lot of people who won't be in the industry and don't have that insight already will still not know, and that would probably put a lot of people off, because I know even just people that I've spoke to being at the boot camps and being at coffee mornings, when I tell them what I do, they don't really understand what I'm doing for a starter, which there's one of our problems. And second of all, they say, oh, like, you're a girl, and I'm like, I'm just still another person. Like, we shouldn't have to have that barrier of, before you even step into the workplace, you feel like you're littler than other people just because of your gender, or whether it might be you're from an ethnic minority. Like, that we shouldn't have that, and that it shouldn't be a thing that we have to deal with.
Do you feel like gender continues to play a large part?
I think there's been progress, and like in my work, I'm sit there and like I feel like there's progress, but obviously I can only speak from my own experience. But I think there's still a lot to do with it, and like there is still some places where I go and I still, like my first ever networking event, I walked into a room and there was probably 2 women there. And I walked in and I was like, should I just turn away? And then I was like, well, then I am part of the problem as well. If I just turn away and turn a blind eye to it and think, well, should I be the second girl in the room?
Yeah.
Like, then I'm just becoming part of the problem as well. So it's just overcoming that. And then the next one I went to, I was like, come on, let's all go. Let's 5 of us go this time. And then there might be even more of us. So it's all about them little steps that we can all take personally. and it does make a difference to everyone else.
And that's something that ripple effect sense is something you've spoken about, not just in regards to what you just mentioned, but also, as you say, with like choosing your apprenticeship and choosing that pathway. I think there's this real need, and what I'm seeing in all of you is not just you as role models and as future leaders, but also as real models, in the sense that your stories paint a real picture of not knowing maybe what to do initially, discovering different things, trying different pathways, pursuing different degrees or work experiences, whatever it may be, and then that's still leading you and informing what it is you want to go on to do, whether the career you end up pursuing is the one you'll stay in for life. I think that's another huge thing, like loyalty in a sense, and how long you stay with an organization is changing merely because of the way the workforce is changing. So I feel like there is really that need for ripple effect, not thinking the system and culture is going to change entirely, but that idea of what you can do as an individual to promote greater inclusivity and that sense of real intergenerational solidarity, I think, more than anything. Are there any other thoughts on
yeah,
those
I
topics?
actually do. I feel like, even touching on that point of being
Yeah.
real models, seeing people that look like you within industry in also higher positions would be a big way to really encourage people, especially of color like myself, to actually want to get into industry. Because I was even talking to a guy from Lloyd's today, I think his name is David, and he went to a women's only networking event, and even he said that he felt out of place and kind of like outside it when he went there, just because he didn't look like anyone there. So I feel like seeing people that look like you, that also can relate to your experiences in and outside of work, can really help to encourage people like myself and other people on this panel as well to actually want to get into real estate more. So, yeah.
I think there's more than just like trying to hire from a more diverse pool. You also have to change like the culture within the company. Like some people come from like, we've had different experiences. I feel like you have to make those people feel comfortable in those spaces to be able to open up and therefore do the best work that they can.
Again, it's not just something that benefits you all as early professionals, but it does create that great sense of, inclusivity and culture. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could just make another point, just a small one. I think we've changed the conversation a bit here away from like the big recruitment processes and more to like the little ripple effect things that we can do and what other people can do. And I think I've been quite negative so far, but this industry has shown me so many people that do really want to help. And sometimes we're not asking for even a week's work experience. It's just a chat on the phone or a call where you can give a bit of advice or share our contact to someone that might be able to help us further. So I think sometimes people fear that we're looking for a lot of experience from someone, and sometimes it's just a little conversation or a little chat or a catch-up. And I have found this industry, and especially with the help of Regeneration, they've just given us so many contacts that do provide that information and that advice. So I think, the smaller steps are just as helpful as the big ones sometimes.
What do you think are the do's and don'ts when it comes to, say, members of the audience who might be inspired to set up, say, a coffee chat or engage with early professionals? What do you think are things, like how have different role models or different mentors that you've had stood out to you? Like what do you think our members of the audience can do to best support like individuals like yourself who might approach for advice like that?
In terms of do's and don'ts, do put on a coffee morning, do invite young people down, do go into a school proactively, don't wait to be invited. I think so much emphasis on that. I'm talking from my personal experience here. I really feel like any opportunity I've been exposed to in this industry has been something that I've had to find. And I understand that, of course, starting out your career, it's all about searching for the next step and being resilient and utilising connections and that type of thing. But we've all been there to sort of like a school careers fair and that type of thing, and these firms will come in and they don't really want to be there talking to you. They don't sound that enthusiastic. Maybe the boss in the office has just sent two of the less senior people along to come and chat to you. So I think kind of looking at a cultural shift, like as an industry, are people aware of how exciting, potentially powerful, important young people are going to be for the future? So yeah, like I say, do set up the coffee mornings, do reach out, do Yeah, networking, like LinkedIn always
Yeah.
feels like it's young people messaging more senior people saying, hey, I saw that you did this, would I be able to catch up for a call? But maybe people in more senior positions should think about building a network for themselves of people to potentially recruit in the future. So yeah, and also, I was going to say they're my do's. I'm not sure if I've got any specific don'ts. Maybe someone else has.
Well, I
has
think
some
what
to
you've
chip
said
in.
there, though, this idea of maybe a lot of the onus being put on the young people themselves to be proactive.
Yeah.
As we've said, it's a mutually beneficial relationship that can be formed. And obviously, you're all going to come knocking on our doors when you're looking for talent. So it is more like how industry themselves can perhaps be more proactive in engaging us. Rose, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I just feel like you can't underestimate how valuable those little experiences
Yeah.
are to young people. Like, I remember being in sixth form trying to write my personal statement for university, and I really did not know what to put on it. With people like Manuela, you have Regeneration Brainery to put on it, which is a really impressive thing to be able to put on your personal statement when you're 18. But a lot of the time, you're in first year or second year of uni, you're looking to apply for an internship. It says, requirements, studying course, must have experience. It's like, well, how do I have experience if I'm my first or second year of uni? And it's things like those coffee mornings that you can just talk about in an interview or write on your CV, which would then get an employer to be like, oh, she went to coffee morning with this company. Well, that's impressive. Let's invite her for a chat. And like that can really like take off your career. I know that with me, at our university, we had the opportunity to do a placement module instead of a whole year. And I really struggled to get one. But when I did, that really opened up a lot of doors. And since then, I've had like 3 different internships just because I've had one name on my CV.
And I bet that massively motivated you in your studies as well. That's so interesting, it being a module like, integrated within your course. But then returning back to university, surely you must have felt energized because you'd seen the relevance. I know for me, like hands-on learning and work experience has been a huge motivation, like my journey thus far. Did you feel the same?
Yeah, I think I felt quite demotivated when I came into second year.
Right.
And a lot of my friends on my course had like parents or like family in the industry who are like, oh, I did work experience over summer, and I hadn't had the opportunity. And so when I managed to find that internship, I really felt like I achieved something. It's like, okay, now I'm like if it was like a level playing field, now I feel like I'm like one step to the same place as my peers.
And I think rapid fire, before we take a few questions from the audience, if people do want to give that one piece of advice, that one call to action, end of a long rainy day, I'd love for our audience to leave feeling energized and with that sense of that's what I can go and do. I feel like we all come to conferences, we all listen to talks, but like I really want to make sure that we don't just leave feeling inspired and feeling like you've just witnessed the future leaders and the people who are doing all the keynotes in the future at UKREiiF, but rather I want them to feel like they can take action and they feel they can play a part in promoting that sense of intergenerational solidarity. So maybe Lewis, starting with you, what's your one call to action? It's not an easy question.
I would just say, like, obviously as a young man growing up around other men and stuff, obviously I know it's aimed at men, but it goes for young girls as well. Like, if you're a man in the industry, be vulnerable and just be humble. Like, I know it can be hard sometimes, but even as the same gender as you coming to you sometimes and asking you for an opportunity or sending you a message, it is quite hard, especially because of the judgment or just like it's intimidating. And I think some people of higher statures in the industry sometimes they do it on purpose, like they make it hard. So I would just say be open, vulnerable, and be humble, because like you were in that position once as well. Whether you had a family in the industry, a friend in the industry, whatever, you were once there, and you might have got a leg up or you might not have done, but either way,
Yeah,
I
don't
don't see
forget
why
where
you
you
wouldn't want to
came
help.
from,
Don't
yeah.
forget where you came from. There's people and there's even people who say, oh, yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, message me on LinkedIn and I can help out, and you'll message them and they won't even respond. I don't see the point in that. I really don't see the point in that, and I think the older generation can benefit from being open
Massively.
to.
Noah?
My point would be, it's just gone out of my head.
I can come back to you if you want.
Yeah, go
Jake.
for it.
I think the one thing that I would think is, I think someone once said it to me, that people like people, so just remember that we don't have to have this unconscious bias in our head of, oh, they're younger than me, they're older than me, they're more senior than me. Like, we're all just people at the end of the day, so let's all just champion each other and work together.
Rose?
I think just always be open to a conversation. I think when you see people in the big suits and stuff, they just do seem quite intimidating. But if somebody like that can come and talk to you and like relate to you on their experiences and just find some kind of relation, it's really valuable.
For me, it would be your age doesn't disqualify you. Just because you may be younger doesn't mean that you haven't got enough skills compared to someone that is a bit older. So remember that just because you are young, you have an advantage. That when it comes into a workspace, age doesn't really matter, just the skills that you perform.
I think if you're an employer and you can get yourself into schools at younger age groups and not only educate the kids but educate the people that educated us, I think that would be a really good place to start.
Yeah. And even following on from that, actually, my one is really take your investment into the future generation and young people seriously, because you never know who is in the room. It could be your future CEO of the company that you're working at right now. It could be your next investment surveyor. It could be anybody. So really take your investment into the people that are at these networking events, or even not at the networking events, very seriously. So yeah, that's my tip.
Coming back to me. Well, I think the fact that you guys are here today probably shows a lot about you as individuals and firms and stuff. So thank you, first of all. But really, my point is probably host a coffee morning. You know, invite some young people down.
He really wants the free coffee.
I love coffee.
It's
Honestly,
great.
I
I'm
love
telling you, it's
coffee.
amazing.
No, but I think it's the little stuff that opens the industry up to a whole new bunch of people. If you're a firm, a development firm who are out on site, maybe one day just invite 20 young people along to the site and let them have a walk around. That might spark ideas and creatives and that type of thing. If you're, I think just be more open. I think a lot of firms maybe feel like, oh, we do lots of stuff for young people, but do you really proactively, is that a part of your office or your firm's culture? And if it's not, I think you should be questioning why it isn't. And you guys out there, maybe go back to your offices and spread that message, because as you said earlier, there's clearly a gap between professionals, industry, experienced people feeling like they're doing stuff and young people who aren't feeling like they're doing enough. And as soon as that gap's bridged, I think this industry will be even more exciting, even more successful than it already is.
And ultimately, I think there's this sense of making sure that no decision about our generation is made without us. And just to completely summarise all of what you said, I think in different ways, you've each come back to that conclusion of the need for openness, the need to be humble, the need to be vulnerable, to connect as people and to humanise the industry beyond egos or silos or job titles. And yeah, getting into the classroom, not seeing age as a defining factor, but rather starting early to really help shape what will be, promises to be a really exciting, cognitively diverse future of work. I mean, really brilliant. I'm so inspired by what each of you have said, and I want to take action. So I'm hoping that all of you feel the same. I'd like to see if we have any questions from members of our audience before we conclude the session. Yeah, if you want to shout.
I think one thing that I've got from my uni software is that I have a software that speaks to me. So like there's like an essay, like an essay prompt, it will speak to me because I read quite slowly, and I'm sure you jump out words and you read things 5 times that don't still quite make sense. But having something read to me, even if it's just emails, I feel like that is really, really valuable.
Yeah, at the back. Yeah. So just to repeat that, I think we're speaking more on the topic of learning curves, and once you've gotten into work, be it your placement, whatever it might be, how have you found that kind of sense of learning on the job? Do you feel it's sometimes too much? Did I capture that okay? Yeah. And the skills gaps being caused by the recruiters who maybe have too high expectations because of their time out of maybe since being an early professional themselves. Does anyone have anything to say on that topic?
I think the whole point, obviously, in internships and like when you start a grad scheme is to gain that experience. Like, obviously, we've gone to university, we've done our education, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we know the ins and outs of how that business works. Even if you have an internship from somewhere different, doesn't mean that you know how that business runs. So I feel like sometimes you can walk into an internship and they just sit you at a desk and be like, okay, do this, and you really just don't know what to do. You feel like a fool for asking questions. But there really is no thing as a stupid question. So.
Yeah.
I think that maybe speaks to recruitment processes as well. It's especially at a sort of beginner starting out your career level, recruitment should be more based on potential and willingness to learn and attitude to the work as opposed to ability on day one of the job. So I think, yeah, there's definitely issues within the recruitment process. But I think young people who are willing to learn have potential to flourish if you give them 3 months, 6 months. Like you said, 10 years' time, they might be the CEO. So.
And going back to that key word of openness, promoting that culture of learning, of curiosity, and allowing people to ask questions and not feel like embarrassed to do so. Benjamin, I see you had a point to make.
Yeah, I was even going to say, well, from my own personal experience, well, me and Rose's personal experience, actually, when we both interned at Octopus Real Estate, one thing that the managers did well in terms of helping us to get past that skill gap, especially for me, because I don't study real estate degree in itself, is that they were very teachable, and they would organize sessions where they would teach us, what's debt, what is this type of finance, what that type of finance, is this a mezzanine loan, is this a development loan, things like that. So having those people in the higher up positions teach us the little bits of like jargon that we need to know for the role itself in separate like closed off time periods was very beneficial to help us learn on the job. And that's literally what Rose was saying. It's the whole point of internship. It's the whole point of a grad scheme. It's the whole point of everything. Experience-wise, we're all just here essentially to learn. So yeah, that's what I want to say.
Fantastic. Yeah, final question on the front, please.
I wanted to ask if any of you had thought about design, like moving maybe across into the design field or doing that and/or both and.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, because design seems to be, whether it's service design, whether it's designing objects or interiors or buildings, it's kind of the content of everything you do. Is that right, or am I wrong?
No, I think that's right. Like on our second year, we did a module, urban design, sustainable urban design, and I thought that was really interesting because I think that's what I initially thought going onto a planning and real estate course. I thought that was what planning would be, designing places, but it's really quite different to urban design and placemaking. I think looking forwards, I think design is definitely something that I'll look into because it really shows how you shape a place, and that's what I think we're all interested in.
I love that, because I think it's next gen need to like pump design back into the industry. In a way, it's kind of like been eviscerated.
Fantastic. Well, I think that brings us to end. Oh, yeah.
I'm from Women in Property, and our members around the country are volunteers, and they do go into schools and do outreach. And they tend to start around year 7, and they go up through actually right through to university. But is there an optimum or the best age to kind of get kids to really grab attention and just to do this? Of course, I know it's not just girls with property, but would you say there's an age when children are the centre? Is it a bit old? Is it near the GCSEs? Or is sort of year 7, 8 a good time to start sowing the seed for the grabbing that attention for the industry?
So the question is there an optimum time for industry to engage with students?
I feel like there's maybe not an optimum time, but I feel like there is ways that we can make sure that when we are going in, it's a suitable time. So, for example, not going in around GCSE time. You know, when maybe people's minds are elsewhere and they're sat in the room, but are they really listening in that room? I think that's probably one bit that could maybe look at. But I think planting the seed early, it's great, because then it's maybe then they could look at even doing like the college course, like what Lewis has done, and you can then join uni like in the later stages, or an apprenticeship a bit later, so you can start it earlier and you can start that process from then GCSE age, and it's just making them more aware of the options that they have got, isn't it? I think
like year 8 and 9 is probably like a really good time, because that's before your GCSEs. Because I know that I prioritised certain GCSEs based on what I wanted to do for my A levels and what I needed to get to do those A levels. So I think if you come in before GCSEs, and definitely before people go on to do A levels or BTECs, that really then helps like shape their future.
And I think in my personal experience, albeit in tech, like I was engaging with industry from about the age of 8 years old, and that is such a very different experience to a lot of my friends. But I really think that sense of confidence, and even things like public speaking, I'm able to do a lot more naturally because I started so young. So I really do feel like if you are able to make those early connections, we're not saying you have to go in and run a career fair for 6-year-olds, but rather just have those open conversations, not about the job titles, but rather about what motivates you, what you're passionate for, what your purpose may be, and how that's led you into your career, humanizing those roles so that then it does almost naturalize and give people that awareness and understanding to promote that sense of openness from the start. Because just as people say they want to be a doctor, they want to be a vet, they want to be a rock star when they grow up, we want them to be saying the same about respective careers within our industry. So I think there is no, you can never start too soon, I don't think.
And just to add on to your point, and we've spoken about ripple effects, I think if you go in, say hypothetically, to a year 9 class at even a girls' school, boys' school, mixed school, once you educate that class and those students as to what there is out there, I would hope that like the teachers and everyone around is also taking that information, and that's getting shared around the rest of the school. And then once you go in once, that's a conversation that's happening in every classroom and every age group. Because I think, as much as there is certain ages where I think we've all individually picked up on things, I think just making sure that conversation is happening at all levels, at all ages, and it's continuing to happen rather than in one pinpoint moment, I think would be my key thing.
Brilliant. Well, that brings us to the end of our session. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and making this a really fruitful discussion. I hope you've found it as inspiring as I know I have. Do have a look into Regeneration Brainery. I encourage you to connect with our ambassadors over on LinkedIn to continue the conversation. I think this is just as much of an opportunity for you all to learn from our ambassadors and continue to promote that sense of reverse mentorship, as it is the chance for us to be here today and learn from each of you. So thank you all for your time. Thank you for listening to the voice of youth, the next generation, your future leaders and bosses. And I hope you've all had a wonderful day and continue to enjoy the conference into tomorrow.